Life's Gifts by Schreiner, read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Newgate Novelist. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Life's Gifts by Schreiner. I saw a woman sleeping. In her sleep she dreamt life stood before her and held in each hand a gift. In the one, love, in the other, freedom. And she said to the woman, "Choose." And the woman waited long, and she said, "Freedom." And life said, "Thou hast well chosen. If thou hadst said love, I would have given thee that thou didst ask for, and I would have gone from thee and returned to thee no more. Now the day will come when I shall return. In that day I shall bear both gifts in one hand." I heard the woman laugh in her sleep. London. End of Life's Gifts by Schreiner.
How do you find this book? Any thoughts about the book or the author? Any suggestion for improvement? Please take a moment to share your thoughts in a comment. If you like it, share it with your friends who might enjoy it as well. Subscribe to keep in touch. Visit CompleteAudiobooks.com for more quality content.
The Night School by James Hopper, read and recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Dan Grzynski. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Night School by James Hopper. Having laid my last hope beneath heavy flowers, I had drifted back to the village of my youth. The little village was now a large city, a clamorous city, and on the first day I met Dorman. It was on a stone sidewalk beneath a pale, faint sun. How he recognized me, God only knows. We both had grown very old, and at first I could see nothing in him of the boy with whom I had gone to school. He stopped and fixed me silently. Then from the folds of his cloak his arm stretched out and gripped me as with a claw. "You are Halton," he said. "Jack Halton, whose desk was next to mine at school." "I am," I said. "I am Jack Halton." He stood there, looking at me with eyes gray and round beneath the bristle of his heavy brows. "I am Dorman," he said. "Nat Dorman, who sat next to you at school." Of late, age has been enwrapping me with its frigid haze, and I have taken to the resource of the old. I stare persistently at the golden days that are gone, and so I remembered. "I remember," I said. His hand was still on my arm. His eyes were on my eyes. "You have a wife? Children?" he asked. "I have had a wife. I have no wife," I answered. "I have had children. I have no children." "I have never had either wife or children," he said. We stood there on the stone sidewalk beneath the cheerless sun. "Wife nor children," he nodded. "Wife nor children." But it was on my answer he pondered, for finally he said, "Come with me to my house for tonight." A vast indifference held me. I said, "Very well, I will go with you to your house for tonight." He raised his stick, and a carriage which had been wheeling slowly back and forth rushed in sudden animation to the curb. We sank upon the dark cushions within. The door shut upon us. As we rolled along the streets I had known, now unknown to me, I noticed that his hands, folded beneath his chin on the top of his cane, trembled incessantly. "How old he is," I thought. It was a palace, his house of stone, thick-walled, the interior full of fine sombre things and muffled with elastic carpets. We dined in a high-ceiled oaken hall before a blazing grate. We held up our glasses to the flame and looked at the golden sun of our youth, the ruby blood of our youth. We drank the sun, we drank the blood, but our veins remained cold. We went upstairs to his room. 2 beds, heavily curtained, were in it, against opposite walls. "There are 2 beds," he said. "You will sleep here with me in my room." I did not care. I answered, "Yes, I will sleep here in your room with you." I slept badly. The bed was heaped with blankets, but they were as heavy as a lid, and between the sheets I was as cold as in the tomb. I dreamed. A bell was ringing somewhere in someone's hand. It had a brazen, persistent sound. When it had ceased with a last rattle of clapper, a drum began to beat. Feet marched to the beat, many of them, light feet, marching a little shufflingly. I could hear their passing from crunched gravel to a resonance of hollow wood. They united in a rhythmic murmur, above which, like gulls eddying over the sea, sharp cries of command hovered, female cries of women. A door slammed to with a clack as of a whip. The drum died abruptly. There was a silence. Then a chorus of fresh young voices rose and song, a song which my bearded, critical self judged harshly, but which was soft to the heart of my youth. Though I thought that I must be asleep, thought that my eyes must be closed, I was aware of my host, in white, standing at one of the 3 southern windows. He, too, seemed to listen to the song. I heard him sigh, a long, dolorous sigh. Then he must have returned to his bed. The song trailed away in a last, long, gentle note, and now I slept undisturbed, a tenderness tugging at my soul. When I awoke after the long night, the room was still dark, but when to my gesture a curtain whirred open with a noise as of wings, the day came in warm with sun. I stood at the window and looked out. I was looking deep into a large bare yard. Children were playing there, many children, brown-headed and yellow-haired, boys and girls. Above them the layers of air striated with sun seemed liquid. They were like goldfish in an aquarium. They zigzagged like butterflies in their bright garments. Their cries, muffled to me, came as the little cries of birds. The front of the yard to my right was a big brick building pierced with many windows. "Do you recognize the place?" Dorman asked. I turned and saw him standing at the casement next to mine. He seemed speaking to the glass, not to me. "It is a school, is it not?" I fenced. "It is our school," he said. I looked back far into my memory and saw that it indeed must be the school to which we had gone when young. But it had changed. The yard had been much wider then, without bonds to the south, where now rose a forest of chimneys and roofs. Then it had stretched away to the south in a grassy meadow that sloped away gently to a brook, and the schoolhouse had not been the big brick pile it now stood. I shut my eyes and saw again the schoolhouse that had been. I saw clearly the little wooden house, its overlapping boards, softly gray, its peaked roof as green as moss, the red veins of the carpeting vine, and the long outside stairway slanting upward to the gallery, along which we marched up to our classroom under the twittering eaves. "They have changed it, our school," I exclaimed, absurdly resentful. "When I returned to this city," he said, "I built here next to the school. I don't know why I built here next to the school." A bell began to ring in the yard beneath me. The children's crisscrossing play halted abruptly and petrified in long, decorous lines. A drum began to beat, and the little ones marched into school. The many little feet stomped the ground together. The lines flowed forward. They coiled, straightened, rose, and slid like ribbons into the yawning portals. The drum beat, the little feet tramped, 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 along halls, up flights of stairs. The whole building trembled to the tremendous unison of their light, firm tread, and above this basic rumor, the commands of the women teachers eddied like the gull's nostalgic cry. The drums stopped, the outer doors clanged shut, a silence followed. Then fresh young voices rose in choral song. "Why, it must be what I heard last night," I cried. But Dorman said, "It was not they. You were the others." I did not understand him. I stayed again at Dorman's house, for he insisted, and I did not care. My sleep was troubled again that night. The covers lay upon me like a stone, and I was tomb cold. A bell began to ring. It rang persistently. Its clangs winged off in brazen waves, struck and rebounded, to mingle with new clangs till my brain pained. I rose at length to its continued attack, and, groping through the velvet darkness, reached one of the windows. I parted the ponderous curtains, looked, and saw nothing. I was looking into the night, and saw only night. Little by little, though, to the fixity of my stare, the blackness seemed to recede, and at last I saw in a brown obscurity. I saw a yard and a schoolhouse. It was a small schoolhouse of wood. The roof was peaked. Vines veined one wall. Stairs along another wall slanted upward to a gallery beneath the eaves. Below me, the indistinct floor of the yard was dimly striated with lines. These were animated with a fluid pulsation. After a time I understood them. Children were lying there, grave little children, many of them with books under their arms or swinging at the end of straps. I tried to count the children, but they were too many. I tried to count the lines, but they fluctuated like tide water. There were many. They ran east and west from the little schoolhouse to the fence at the back, then turned flexibly and streamed off to the south, where in my youth the land lay open. I could not see them end over there. My eyes followed them till they merged in the darkness, but even there and beyond, the void held an undulation of fluid multitudes. Multitudes of children waited in line over there in the vague region beyond the reading of my sight. The bell came to a stop with a last wicked rattle, and a drum began to beat. A shiver passed along the lines like a breeze. All the small forms bent slightly forward. The lines began to flow, and the night became filled with a measured, soft and tender tramping sound, which was as the muffled heartbeat of the night. The lines passed by. They came glidingly from the void in the south, swung into the yard with a lithe torsion of a fish that turns, crushed across the gravel, stamped up the planking of the stairs, flowed into the yawn of the doors. They passed, the children, by hundreds, by thousands. The stairs shook. The frail building trembled. The night was rhythmic with the soft beat of their feet. The drum beat. They passed, and still the vastness to the south palpitated obscurely with unnumbered reserves. Above the basic rumor, the cries of the women were sharp. "It is our class coming now, our own class," said a voice within the room. I turned toward it. Dorman was at the window next to mine. Seated in his rich red armchair, he was looking as I looked, his brow against the pane. "How our class? How our class?" I said peevishly. "It is our class. You see if it is not our class." And then it was truly our class that passed, the little companions of our childhood. They came in line from the dim reservoir to the south, turned into the yard, crunched upon its gravel, and rose along the stairway to the small room beneath the eaves. Their familiar little feet hissed gently against the wooden steps, and we stood there, the two old men, each at his window, watching with cold brows upon the panes. Dorman, as they passed, told them off to me one by one, their names and their fate. I saw Jack Bennet, the butcher's son, and I remembered that I still owed him a marble. I saw red-headed Jack Stearns, with his pale up-tilted nose and the glass eye which had been our marvel and our pride, and Roscoe Miller, who had become a banker, and Starr, who had ended in the gutter, and Perry, who had wrecked himself against the things that will not move. Up the other stairs, which we could not see, I guessed that the girls were passing, and I knew that among them was a frail, blue-eyed girl. Ah, how well I remembered her. "But," I said, "all those you tell me of have died." From his window, Dorman said, "I have noticed that. All those that pass here have died." He added after a moment, "And all those with whom we went to school pass here. The class is almost complete." And still they passed, and still Dorman told them off. Some had been poor, some had been rich, some had been comic, and some tragic. But all had died. Ralph Dorn passed by. He had been my best chum at school. "Ralph! Ralph!" went my lips, but made no noise, and he did not hear. But I knew now that all my life I had missed him. Him and the frail blue-eyed girl. I knew now what had been ailing my life. "Here is Keating," said Dorman. "Watch him. He's always funny." To the stairs came a hunchback boy. He toiled up with much labor, but did not know that he toiled, for his eyes were ahead, far amid vapory visions. Beneath his cap, his hair was like a wreath of gold. "He wrote verse, and he starved," said Dorman. "I have his book in the library. It is funny." The poet boy toiled up uncertainly. He zigzagged a bit from side to side. The cries of the women teachers eddied over him. He slowed up the line and disordered the march. His eyes were far. The boy behind him mischievously wiped his feet upon his stockings, but he was unaware of it. The same boy reached within his pocket and took his pencil and his knife, but still he did not notice. He let a book slip from beneath his elbow, and the boy behind trampled upon it. Finally, the boy behind gave him a push. The poet boy fell. His cap jerked off his head. His books scattered down the steps. A woman teacher picked him up and shook him ragefully, while the boy behind looked grave and reproachful. If I were there, I would protect him, I thought. If I were there, I would understand him. "Who is the boy behind?" I asked of Dorman. "It is Spike Martin," he answered. "He has been the most successful of us all. His sons are multimillionaires." I noticed now that this was the end of all the marching. This was the last line. A length of it was still on the stairs, but the yard behind was already empty. "It is the end," I said. "Yes," he answered. "They have all passed now. Our class is always the last." "But wait," I said. "Here comes another boy, I think." "Are you sure?" said Dorman. "I have not missed anyone." Yes, I am sure." From the vague somberness to the south, a dim form was flitting toward us. It neared. It was a boy, running very fast, his books under his arm, his cap in hand. "But who is that boy? Who is that boy?" Dorman murmured. The boy was still in the twilight, not quite distinct, but he was nearing very fast. He seemed to pant for his school. Despite his fast running, his hair was orderly and a little damp from late combing, as though to the ring of the bell he had broken away from a mother's lingering touch. "Who is that boy? Who is that boy?" mumbled Dorman. The boy was near, and something about his square shoulders, his sturdy legs, the way he swayed slightly from right to left as he ran gave my memory unrest. "Who is that boy? Who is that boy?" Dorman cried. "It seems to me I know. It seems to me I know," I said, my memory more and more restless. "Who is that boy, Halton? Who is that boy?" And suddenly I knew. "It is you, Dorman. It is you," I cried. No, Halton, don't say that. Who is that boy?" It is you, I cried. The boy came swiftly across the yard, leapt up the steps. He came to the poet boy, drew him aside eagerly, took his place. Then, with incredible quickness, he pulled aside boy after boy till he was first and at the door. He vanished within. The boys behind, one after the other, vanished within. The poet boy, last of the line, vanished within. The door slapped shut. The drum stopped beating. There was a silence. I left my window and, going up to Dorman, placed a friendly hand upon his shoulder. And he was dead. Dead there in his rich red armchair, his brow still upon the cold pane. I think I shall stay here always, and stand at the window at night, till out of the vague region to the south I see a boy come running, a last late boy come running to join his dear comrades. End of The Night School by James Hopper. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
The Inn of Dreams by Olive Custance. Read for Dreams, Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Chad Horner from Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the island of Ireland. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Inn of Dreams by Olive Custance. Sweet laughter, sweet delight. My heart is like a lighted inn that waits your swift approach, and at the open gates white beauty stands and listens like a flower. She has been dreaming of you in the night, O fairy princess, and her eyes are bright. Spur your fleet horses, this is beauty's hour. Even as when a golden flame upcurled quivers and flickers out in a dark place, so it is with the flame of beauty's face, that torch, that rose, that wonder of the world, and love shall sweep to see when he rides by years hence. The time shall seem as a bird's flight, a lonely inn beneath a winter sky. Come now, sweet friends, before the summer die. Sweet laughter, sweet delight. End of The Inn of Dreams by Olive Custance.
A Pre-Existence by Madison Kuwayne. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by April 1690, California, United States of America. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Pre-Existence by Madison Kuwayne. An intimation of some previous life or dark dream, in the present dim divined, of some uncertain sleep, or lived or dreamed, in some dead life between a dusk and dawn, from heathen battles to Toledo's gates, far off defined his corselet and camail, damascened, armet, shattered in an eaves, anchor of brass, a galloping glitter, one, rode arrow wounded, and the city caught, a cry before him and a wail behind, of walls beleaguered, battles, conquered kings, triumphant Tarik, broken Spain and slaves, and I, a Moslem slave, a miser Jews, housed near the Tagus, squalid and alone, save for his slave, held dear, to beat and starve, leaner than my lank shadow when the moon, a burning beacon, westerns and my bones, a visible hunger, famished with the fear, sole garb of slaves, I bore him, I who held him soul and self, more hated than his God, stood silent, fools had laughed, I saw my way. Wartime crops weapons, and the blade I bought was subtly pointed, for I knew his ways, the nightly nuptials of his jars of gems, and bags of doublas, oh, I knew his ways. A shadow woven in the hangings, hid, till time said now, gaunt from the hanging, stole. Behind him, humped and stooping so, his heart clove through the faded tunic, Murray died, grinned exultation, while the grim, slow blood drenched black and darkened round the oblong wound, and its old face thinned grayer than morn's noon. Rubies from Badakhshan in rose lights dripped, slim tears of poppy purple crystal, dull, red, ember-pregnant carbuncles wherein fevered a captive crimson, bugles wan, of cat-eyed hyacinths, moon emeralds, with starry greenness stabbed in limpid stains, of liquid lilac Persian amethysts, fire opals savage and mesmeric with voluptuous flame, long, sweet, and sensuous as soft eyes of Orient women, sapphires beamed, with talismanic violet from tombs, Dive guarded of primordial Solomons, length agonized with fire, diamonds of Golconda, this a sandaled dervise bear, 7 days beneath a red Arabian sun, 7 nights beneath a round Arabian moon, under his tongue in emir's ransom held, of some wild tribe, bleached in the perishing waste. A Bedouin Arab found sand-strangled bones, a skeleton vulture torn, fierce in whose skull one blazing eye, the diamond, at Aleppo, bartered a bauble for his desert love, hyacinth and Indian pearl, gem jolting gem, flashed, rutilating in the irised light, a rain of splintered fire, and his head, long-haired, white sunk among them. Yet I took all, though his eyes burned in them, though, meseemed, each several jewel glared a separate curse. Well, dead men work us mischief from the grave, richer than all Castile, yet not dare drink but from cups of Roman Mura, spar, bowls sprayed with fibrile gold, spar sensitive, of poison, I no slave, yet all a slave, to fear a dead fool's malice, still, how else? Feasting within the music of my halls, while perfumed beauty danced in sinuous robes, diaphanous, more silken than those famed, of loomed Amorgos, or of classic Kos, draining the unflawed marine, Xeres brimmed. Had I reeled poison? Dying, wolf's bane slain. End of A Pre-Existence by Madison Cawein.
The Reverie by Clinton Joseph Massac. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Newgate Novelist. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Reverie by Clinton Joseph Massac. Full brims my heart tonight, too full it brims with memories dear of bygone days, those days of passion deep when thou wert near. Those days were long, long ago, but brightly burns the lamp of memory still. Again I kiss thy face, dear face, all damp with gladsome tears. Again at dusk I sit alone with thee, and watch the dark of night steal in, far o'er the silver sea. For now I am an old and life-worn soul, but still of thee I dream and dream all time. Oh, come, I beg, again to me, for then we'll sail the purple sea of dreams to that far land of yesterday, and there, dear heart, upon that golden strand we'll live, and yes, again at dusk I'll sit alone with thee, and watch the dark of night steal in, far o'er the silver sea. End of The Reverie by Clinton Joseph Massac.
The Mother's Dream by Hannah F. Gould. Read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Chad Horner from Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the island of Ireland. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Mother's Dream by Hannah F. Gould. And I will give them the morning star. Revelation chapter 2, verse 28. Methought once more to my wishful eye my beautiful boy had come. My sorrow was gone, my cheek was dry, and gladness around my home. I saw the form of my dear lost child, all kindled with life he came, and he came in his own sweet voice and smiled as soon as I called his name. The garb he wore looked heavenly white, as the fallow snow comes down, and warm as it shone in the softened light that fell from his dazzling crown. His eye was bright with a joy serene, his cheek with a deathless bloom, and only the eye of my soul hath seen when looking beyond the tomb. The odours of flowers from the thornless land, where we deem that our blessed ones are, seemed borne in his skirts, and his soft right hand was holding a radiant star. His feet unshod looked tender and fair as the lily's opening bell, half veiled in a cloud of glory as there around him in folds it fell. I asked him how he was clothed anew, who circled his head with light, and whence he returned to meet my view, so calm and heavenly bright. I asked him where he had been so long away from his mother's care, again to sing me his infant song, and to kneel by my side in prayer. He said, Sweet mother, the song I sing is not for an earthly ear. I touch the harp with a golden string, for the hosts of heaven to hear. But it was a gently fleeting breath that severed thy child from thee. The fearful shadow in time called death hath ministered life to me. My voice in an angel choir I lift, and high are the notes we raise. I hold the sign of a priceless gift, and the giver who hath our praise. The bright and the morning star is he, who bringeth eternal day, and mother, he giveth himself to thee, to lighten thine earthly way. The race is short to a peaceful goal, and he is never afar, who saith of the wise, untiring soul, I will give him the morning star. Thy treasure of care from me was filled, and pure of its crystal top, for faith with a steady eye distilled, and numbered every drop. While thou wast teaching my lips to move, and my heart to rise in prayer, I learned the way to a world above. The home of thy child is there. The secret prayers thou didst make for me, that only thy God hath known, arose like sweet incense, holy and free, and gathered around his throne. My robe was filled with the perfume sweet, to shed upon the earth's air, as I joyful knelt at my Saviour's feet, for the glorious crown I wear. In that bright blissful world of ours, the waters of life I drink. Behold my feet as they've pressed the flowers that grow by the fountain's brink. No thorn is hidden to wind me there. There's nothing of chill or blight, or sighing to blend with the balmy air. No sorrow, no pain, no night. No parting, I asked, with a burst of joy, and the lovely illusion broke. My rapture had banished my beauteous boy. To a shadowy void I spoke. But, oh, that star of the morn still beams, with light to direct my feet, where, when I have done with my earthly dreams, the mother and child may meet. End of The Mother's Dream by Hannah F. Gould.
In the Tower, A Recorded Dream by Valery Bryusov. Read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Scarbo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. In the Tower, A Recorded Dream by Valery Bryusov. There is no doubt that I dreamed all this, dreamed it last night. True, I never thought that a dream could be so circumstantial and so consecutive, but none of the events of this dream have any connection with what I am experiencing now, or with anything that I can remember. Yet how otherwise can a dream be differentiated from reality except in this way? That it is divorced from the continuous chain of events which occur in our waking hours? I dreamed of a knight's castle, somewhere on the shore of the sea. Beyond it there was a field and a stunted yet ancient forest of pines. In front of it there stretched an expanse of grey northern billows. The castle had been roughly built with stone of a terrible thickness, and from the side it looked like a wild and fantastic cliff. Its deep, irregularly placed windows were like the nests of monstrous birds. Within the castle were high, gloomy chambers with sounding passages between them. As I now call to mind the furniture of the rooms, the dress of the people about me, and other trifling details, I clearly understand to what period my dream had taken me back. It was the life of the Middle Ages, dreadful, austere, still half savage, still full of impulses not yet under control. But in the dream I had not at first this understanding of the time, but only a dull feeling that I myself was foreign to that life into which I was plunged. I felt confusedly that I was some kind of newcomer into that world. At times this feeling was more intense. Something would suddenly begin to torture my memory, like a name which one wants to remember and cannot. When I was shooting birds with a crossbow, I would long for another and more effective weapon. The knights, encased in their armor of iron, accustomed to murder, seeking only for plunder, appeared to me to be degenerates, and I foresaw the possibility of a different and more refined existence. As I argued with the monks on scholastic questions, I had a foretaste of some other kind of learning, deeper, fuller, freer. But when I made an effort to bring something into my memory, my consciousness was bedimmed anew. I lived in the castle as a prisoner, or, more truly, as an hostage. A special tower was allotted to me. I was treated with respect, but was kept under guard. I had no definite occupation of any kind, and the lack of employment was burdensome to me. But there was one thing which brought happiness and ecstasy into my life. I was in love. The governor of the castle was named Hugo von Riesen. He was a giant with a voice of thunder and the strength of a bear. He was a widower. But he had one daughter, Matilda, tall, graceful, bright-eyed. She was like St. Catherine as the Italians paint her, and I loved her passionately and tenderly. As Matilda took charge of all the housekeeping in the castle, we used to meet several times a day, and every meeting would fill my soul with blessing. For a long while I could not make up my mind to tell Matilda of my love, though of course my eyes betrayed my secret. I uttered the fateful words quite unexpectedly, as it were, one morning at the close of winter. We met on the narrow staircase leading to the watchtower, and though it had often happened that we had been alone together, in the snow-covered garden, and in the dim hall, under the marvelous light of the moon, for some reason or other, it was specially at this moment that I felt I could not be silent. I pressed myself close up against the wall, stretched out my hands, and said, "Matilda, I love you." Matilda did not blench. She simply bent her head and answered softly, "I love you too. You are my chosen one." Then she ran quickly up the stairs, and I stood there, against the wall, still holding out my hands. In the most consecutive of dreams, there was always some break in the action. I can remember nothing of what happened in the days immediately following my confession of love. I remember only that I was walking with Matilda on the shore, though everything showed that some weeks must have elapsed. The air was already filled with the odors of spring, but the snow still lay on the ground. The waves, with thunderous noise, were rolling in with white crests onto the stony beach. It was evening, and the sun was sinking into the sea, like a magic bird of fire, setting the edges of the clouds aflame. We walked along side by side. Matilda was wearing a coat lined with ermine, and the ends of her white scarf floated in the wind. We dreamed of the future, the happy future, forgetting that we were children of different races, and that between us lay an abyss of national enmity. It was difficult for us to talk, because I did not know Matilda's language very well, and she was quite ignorant of mine, but we understood much, even without words. And even now my heart trembles as I remember this walk along the shore, within sight of the gloomy castle, in the rays of the setting sun. I was experiencing and living through true happiness. Whether awake or in a dream, what difference does it make? It must have been on the following morning that I was told Hugo wished to speak to me. I was taken into his presence. He was seated on a high bench covered with elk furs. A monk was reading a letter to him. Hugo was glowering and angry. When he saw me, he said sternly, "Aha! Do you know what your countrymen are doing? Was it such a little thing for us to defeat you at Izborsk? We set fire to Pskov, and you besought us to have mercy. Now you're asking for help from Alexander, who glories in the appellation of Nevsky. But we are not like the Swedes. Sit down and write to your people of our might, so that they may be brought to reason. And if you refuse, then you and all the other hostages will pay cruelly for your refusal." It is difficult to explain fully what feelings took possession of me then. Love for my native land was the first which spoke powerfully in my soul, an elemental, inexplicable love, like one's love towards one's mother. I felt that I was a Russian, that in front of me were enemies, that here I stood for all Russia. At the same moment, I perceived and acknowledged with bitterness that the happiness of which Matilda and I had dreamed had forever departed from me, that my love for a woman must be sacrificed to my love for my native land. But scarcely had these feelings filled my soul, when in the very depths of my consciousness there suddenly flamed an unexpected light. I understood that I was sleeping, that everything, the castle, Hugo, Matilda, and my love for her, everything was but a dream. And I suddenly wanted to laugh in the faces of the stern knight and his monk assistant. For I knew already that I should wake and there would be nothing, no danger, no grief. I felt an inconquerable courage in my soul, because I could go away from my enemies into that world whither they were unable to follow me. Holding my head high, I replied to Hugo, "You know yourself that this is not true. Who called you to these lands? This sea is Russian from time immemorial. It belonged to the Varyagi. You came here to convert people, and instead of that you have built castles on the hills. You oppress the people, and you threaten our towns even as far as to Ladoga itself. Alexander Nevsky undertook a holy work. I rejoice that the people of Pskov had no pity on their hostages. I will not write what you wish, but I will encourage them to fight against you. God will defend the right." I said this as if I were declaiming upon a stage, and I purposely chose ancient expressions so that my language might fit the period. But my words threw Hugo into a frenzy. "Dog!" he cried to me. "Tartar slave! I will order you to be broken on the wheel." Then there came swiftly to my remembrance, as if it had been a revelation, given to a seer from on high, the whole course of Russian history, and I spoke to the German triumphantly and sternly, as a prophet. "Know this, that Alexander will overcome you on the ice of the Chudsky Lake. Knights without number will there be hewn down, and our descendants will take all this land under their domination, and have your descendants in subjection to them." "Take him away!" cried Hugo, the veins of his neck swelling and purpling with anger. The servants led me away, not to my tower, but to a noisome underground place, a dungeon. The days dragged away in the damp and darkness. I lay on rotting straw. Moldy bread was thrown into me for food. For whole days I heard no sound of a human voice. My garments were soon in rags. My hair was matted. My body was covered with sores. Only in unattainable dreams did I picture to myself the sea and the sunlight, the spring, the fresh air, and Matilda. And in the near future the wheel and whipping post awaited me. As the joy of my meetings with Matilda had been real to me, so were my sufferings in her father's dungeon. But the consciousness in myself that I was sleeping and having a bad dream did not become dim. Knowing that the moment of awakening was at hand, and that the walls of my prison would disperse as a mist, I found in myself the strength to bear all my tortures unrepiningly. When the Germans proposed that I should buy my freedom with the price of treachery to my native land, I answered with a defiant refusal, and my enemies themselves esteemed my firmness, which cost me less than they thought. Here my dream breaks off. I may have perished by the hand of the executioner, or have been delivered from bondage by the victory of the Battle of Ice on April 5th, 1241, as were other hostages from Pskov. But I simply awakened, And here I am, sitting at my writing table, surrounded by familiar and beloved books, and I am recording this long dream, intending to begin the ordinary life of this day. Here, in this world, among these people who are in the next room, I am at home. I am actually... But a strange and dreadful thought quietly arises from the dark depths of my consciousness. What if now I am sleeping and dreaming, and I shall suddenly awake on the straw, in the underground dungeon of the castle of Hugo von Riesen? End of In the Tower, A Recorded Dream, by Valery Bryusov.
A Cradle Song by William Blake. Read and recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Michelle Dyer. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Cradle Song by William Blake. Sleep, sleep, beauty bright, dreaming in the joys of night. Sleep, sleep. In thy sleep, little sorrows sit and weep. Sweet babe, in thy face soft desires I can trace, secret joys and secret smiles, little pretty infant wiles. As thy softest limbs I feel, smiles as of the morning steal over thy cheek and over thy breast, where thy little heart doth rest. Oh, the cunning wiles that creep in thy little heart asleep. When thy little heart doth wake, then the dreadful light shall break. End of A Cradle Song by William Blake.
Portrait of a Boy by Stephen Vincent Benet. Read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Colleen McMahon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Portrait of a Boy by Stephen Vincent Benet. After the whipping, he crawled into bed, accepting the harsh fact with no great weeping. How funny Uncle's hat had looked, striped red. He chuckled silently. The moon came, sweeping a black, frayed rag of tattered cloud before. In scorning, very pure and pale she seemed, flooding his bed with radiance. On the floor, fat motes danced. He sobbed, closed his eyes, and dreamed. Warm sand flowed round him. Blurts of crimson light splashed the white grains like blood. Past the cave's mouth shone with a large, fierce splendor, wildly bright, the crooked constellations of the south. Here the cross swung, and there, affronting Mars, the centaur stormed aside a froth of stars. Within, great casks, like wattled aldermen, sighed of enormous feasts, and cloth of gold glowed on the walls like hot desire. Again, beside webbed purples from some galleon's hold, a black chest bore the skull and bones in white, above a scrawled gunpowder. By the flames, decked out in crimson, gemmed with cyanite, hailing their fellows with outrageous names, the pirates sat and diced. Their eyes were moons. Doubloons, they said. The words crashed gold. Doubloons. End of Portrait of a Boy by Stephen Vincent Benet.
Days and Dreams by Madison Cowain. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by April 9060, California, United States of America. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Days and Dreams by Madison Cowain. He dreamed of hills so deep with woods, storm barriers on the summer sky, are not more dark for plunged loud floods, down rocks of sullen dye. Flat ways were where his sparsely grew, gnarled iron-colored oaks with rifts, between dead boughs of Eden blue. Ways where the speedwell lifts its shy appeal and spreading far, the gold, the fallen gold of dawn. staining each blossom's balanced star, hollows of cowslips wan, where round the feet the lady's smock and pearl-pale lady slippers creep. White butterflies upon them rock, or seal brown suck and sleep. At eve the west shoots crooked fire, athwart a half-moon leaning low, while one white arrowy star throbs higher in curdled honey glow. Was it some elfin euphrasy that purged his spirit so that there blue harebells by those ways that be seemed summoning to prayer? For all the death within him prays, not he whose higher self, whose love, fire filled the flesh, its light still stays, touched by the soul above. They found him dead his songs beside, 6 stairs above the din and dust of life, and that for which he died denied him even a crust. End of Days and Dreams by Madison Cowain.
The Dream of Eugene Aram by Thomas Hood, recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by N.R. Collard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Dream of Eugene Aram by Thomas Hood. 'Twas in the prime of summer-time, an evening calm and cool, and 24 happy boys came bounding out of school. There were some that ran, and some that leapt, like troutlets in a pool. Away they sped, with gainsome minds and souls untouched by sin. To a level mead they came, and there they drave the wickets in. Pleasantly shone the setting sun over the town of Lynn. Like sportive deer they coursed about and shouted as they ran, turning to mirth all things of earth as only boyhood can. But the usher sat remote from all, a melancholy man. His hat was off, his vest apart, to catch heaven's blessed breeze, for a burning thought was in his brow, and his bosom ill at ease. So he leaned his head on his hands, and read the book between his knees. Leaf after leaf he turned it o'er, nor ever glanced aside. For the peace of his soul he read that book in the golden eventide. Much study had made him very lean, and pale, and leaden-eyed. At last he shut the ponderous tome with a fast and fervent grasp. He strained the dusky covers close, and fixed the brazen hasp. O God, could I so close my mind, and clasp it with a clasp? Then leaping on his feet upright, some moody turns he took, now up the mead, then down the mead, and past a shady nook. And lo, he saw a little boy that pored upon a book. My gentle lad, what is't you read? Romance or fairy fable? Or is it some historic page, or kings and crowns unstable? The young boy gave an upward glance. It is the death of Abel. The usher took 6 hasty strides, as smit with sudden pain, 6 hasty strides beyond the place, then slowly back again, and down he sat beside the lad, and talked with him of Cain, and, long since then, of bloody men whose deeds tradition saves, of lonely folk cut off unseen, and hid in sudden graves, of horrid stabs in groves forlorn, and murders done in caves. And how the sprites of injured men shriek upward from the sod, aye, how the ghostly hand will point to show the burial clod, and unknown facts of guilty acts are seen in dreams from God. He told how murderers walk the earth beneath the curse of Cain, with crimson clouds before their eyes and flames about their brain, for blood has left upon their souls its everlasting stain. And well, quoth he, I know for truth their pangs must be extreme. Woe, woe, unutterable woe, who spill life's sacred stream. For why? Methought last night I wrought a murder in a dream. one that had never done me wrong, a feeble man and old. I led him to a lonely field, the moon shone clear and cold. Now here, said I, this man shall die, and I will have his gold. 2 sudden blows with a ragged stick, and one with a heavy stone, one hurried gash with a hasty knife, and then the deed was done. There was nothing lying at my foot but lifeless flesh and bone. Nothing but lifeless flesh and bone that could not do me ill, and yet I feared him all the more for lying there so still. There was a manhood in his look that murder could not kill. And lo, the universal air seemed lit with ghastly flame. 10,000 dreadful eyes were looking down in blame. I took the dead man by his hand and called upon his name. O God, it made me quake to see such sense within the slain. And then I touched the lifeless clay, the blood gushed out amain, for every clot a burning spot was scorching in my brain. My head was like an ardent coal, my heart as solid ice. My wretched, wretched soul, I knew, was at the devil's price. 12 times I'd groaned, the dead had never groaned but twice. And now from forth the frowning sky, from the heaven's topmost height, I heard a voice, the awful voice of the blood-avenging sprite. Thou guilty man, take up thy dead and hide it from my sight. I took the dreary body up and cast it in a stream, a sluggish water, black as ink, the depth was so extreme. My gentle boy, remember, this is nothing but a dream. Down went the corse with a hollow plunge, and vanished in the pool. Anon I cleansed my bloody hands, and washed my forehead cool, and sat among the urchins young, that evening in the school. O heaven, to think of their white souls and mine, so black and grim! I could not share in childish prayer, nor join in evening hymn. Like a devil of the pit I seemed, amid holy cherubim. And peace went with them one and all, and each calm pillow spread. But guilt was my grim chamberlain, that lighted me to bed, and drew my midnight curtains round with fingers bloody red. All night I lay in agony, in anguish dark and deep. My fevered eyes I dared not close, but stared aghast at sleep, for sin had rendered unto her the keys of hell to keep. All night I lay in agony, from weary chime to chime, with one besetting horrid hint that racked me all the time, a mighty yearning like the first fierce impulse unto crime. One stern tyrannic thought that made all other thoughts its slave. Stronger and stronger every pulse did that temptation crave, still urging me to go and see the dead man in his grave. Heavily I rose up as soon as light was in the sky, and sought the black accursed pool with a wild misgiving eye. And I saw the dead in the river bed, for the faithless stream was dry. Merrily rose the lark and shook the dewdrop from its wing, but I never marked its morning flight, I never heard it sing, for I was stooping once again under the horrid thing. With breathless speed like a soul in chase, I took him up and ran. There was no time to dig a grave before the day began. In a lonesome wood, with heaps of leaves, I hid the murdered man. And all that day I read in school, but my thought was otherwhere. As soon as the midday task was done, in secret I was there, and a mighty wind had swept the leaves, and still the course was bare. Then down I cast me on my face, and first began to weep, for I knew my secret then was one the earth refused to keep, or land, or sea, though he should be 10,000 fathoms deep. So wills the fierce avenging sprite, till blood for blood atones, aye, though he's buried in a cave and trodden down with stones, and years have rotted off his flesh, the world shall see his bones. O God, that horrid, horrid dream besets me now awake. Again, again, with dizzy brain, the human life I take, and my red right hand grows raging hot like Cranmer's at the stake. And still no peace for the restless clay will wave or mould allow. The horrid thing pursues my soul, it stands before me now. The fearful boy looked up and saw huge drops upon his brow. That very night, while gentle sleep the urchin eyelids kissed, 2 stern-faced men set out from Lynn through the cold and heavy mist, and Eugene Aram walked between with gyves upon his wrist. The Dream of Eugene Aram by Thomas Hood. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
Dreamland by Harry Graham. Read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Chad Horner from Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the island of Ireland. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Dreamland by Harry Graham. Here you will see strange happenings with absolutely placid eyes. If all your uncles sprouted wings, you would not feel the least surprise. The oddest things that you can do don't seem a bit absurd to you. You go, in dreamland, to a ball, and suddenly are shocked to find that you have nothing on at all. But somehow no one seems to mind, and naturally you don't care if they can bear what you can bear. Then, in a moment, you're pushed by engines on a railway track. Your legs are tied, your feet are glued, the train comes snorting down your back. One last attempt at flight you make, and so in bed, perspiring, wake. You feel so free from weight of cares that, if the staircase you should climb, you gaily mount no single stairs, but whole battalions at a time. My metaphor is mixed, may be. I quote from Shakespeare, as you see. If you should eat too much you pay, in dreams, the penalty for this. A nightmare carries you away and drops you down a precipice. Down, down, until, with sudden smack, you strike the mattress with your back. Moral: at meals, decline to be a beast. Too much is better than a feast. End of Dreamland by Harry Graham.
Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by N.R. Collard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure-dome decree, where Alph the sacred river ran, through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers, were girdled round, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree. And here were forests ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. But oh, that deep romantic chasm, which slanted down the green hill athwart a cedarn cover, a savage place, as holy and enchanted as e'er beneath the waning moon was haunted, by woman wailing for her demon lover. And from this chasm, with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amid whose swift half-intermitted burst huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail, or chaffy grain beneath the thresher's flail. And mid these dancing rocks at once and ever it flung up momently the sacred river, 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion, through wood and dale the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns measureless to man, and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean, and mid this tumult Kubla heard from far ancestral voices prophesying war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. A damsel with a dulcimer in a vision once I saw. It was an Abyssinian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Could I revive within me her symphony and song, to such a deep delight 'twould win me, that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air. That sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honeydew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise. Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
A Reverie by Nellie Seeley Evans. Read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Newgate Novelist. Far inland, as I sat with book on knee, there came one night a calling of the sea from broad Pacific's blue and windless deep, to where the Arctic's giant icebergs leap and shake their minarets of crystal cold, and launch upon their voyage free and bold. There seemed within my warm and silent room the sound of many waters, and the boom of breakers pounding on a rock-ribbed shore that echoed to their tumult evermore. October 7th, 1907. End of A Reverie by Nellie Seeley Evans. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
The Dream of King Conavutra by Lord Dunsany. Read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Dream of King Conavutra. King Conavutra, sitting on his throne, commanding all things, said, I very clearly saw last night the queenly Vavaneria. Though partly she was hidden by great clouds that swept continually by her, rolling over and over, yet her face was unhidden and shone, being full of moonlight. I said to her, Walk with me by the great pools in many-gardened beautiful Istrahan, where the lilies float that give delectable dreams. Or drawing aside the curtain of hanging orchids, pass with me thence from the pools by a secret path, through the else impassable jungle that fills the only way between the mountains that shut in Astrakhan. They shut it in and look on it with joy at morning and at evening when the pools are strange with light. till in their gladness sometimes there melts the deadly snow that kills upon lonely heights the mountaineer. They have valleys among them older than the wrinkles in the moon. Come with me thence, or linger with me there, and either we shall come to romantic lands, which the men of the caravans only speak of in song, or else we shall listlessly walk in a land so lovely that even the butterflies that float about it when they see their images flash in the sacred pools are terrified by their beauty, and each night we shall hear the myriad nightingales all in one chorus sing the stars to death. Do this, and I will send heralds far from here with tidings of thy beauty. And they shall run and come to Sendera, and men shall know it there who herd brown sheep, and from Sendera the rumour shall spread on, down either the bank of the holy river of Zoth, to the people that make wattles in the plain shall hear of it and sing. But the herald shall go northward along the hills until they come to Summa. And in that golden city they shall tell the kings that sit in their lofty alabaster house of thy strange and sudden smiles. And often in distant markets shall thy story be told by merchants out from Summa, as they sit telling careless tales to lure men to their wares. And the heralds passing thence shall come even to Ingra where they dance. And there they shall tell of thee, so that thy name long hence shall be sung in that joyous city. And there they shall borrow camels, and pass over the sands, and go by desert ways to distant Nired, to tell of thee to the lonely men in the mountain monasteries. Come with me even now, for it is spring. And as I said this, she faintly yet perceptibly shook her head. And it was only then I remembered my youth was gone, and she dead 40 years. End of The Dream of King Carnavotra by Lord Dunsany. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
The Mother's Dream by Hannah Flagg Gould. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Mike Ferry 252. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Mother's Dream by Hannah Flagg Gould. Methought once more to my wishful eye, my beautiful boy had come. My sorrow was gone, my cheek was dry, and gladness around my home. I saw the form of my dear lost child. All kindled with life he came, as he spake in his own sweet voice and smiled as soon as I called his name. The garb he wore looked heavenly white, as the feathery snow comes down, and warm as it shone in the softened light that fell from his dazzling crown. His eye was bright with a joy serene, his cheek with the deathless bloom, that only the eye of my soul hath seen, when looking beyond the tomb. The odors of flowers from the thornless land, where we deem that our blessed ones are, seemed born in his skirts, and his soft right hand was holding a radiant star. His feet unshod looked tender and fair as the lily's opening bell, half veiled in a cloud of glory as there around him in folds it fell. I asked him how he was clothed anew, who circled his head with light, and whence he returned to meet my view so calm and heavenly bright. I asked him where he had been so long, away from his mother's care, again to sing me his infant song, and to kneel by my side in prayer. He said, "Sweet mother, this song I sing is not for an earthly ear. I touch the harp with a golden string, for the hosts of heaven to hear. It was but a gently fleeting breath that severed thy child from thee. The fearful shadow in time called death hath ministered life to me. My voice in an angel choir I lift, and high are the notes we raise. I hold the sign of a priceless gift, and the giver who hath our praise. The bright and the morning star is he, who bringeth eternal day, and Mother, he giveth himself to thee, to lighten thine earthly way. The race is short to a peaceful goal, and he is never far, who saith of the wise and tiring soul, I will give him the morning star. Thy measure of care for me was filled, and pure to its crystal top, for faith with a steady eye distilled, and numbered every drop. While thou wast teaching my lips to move, and my heart to rise in prayer, I learned the way to a world above, the home of thy child is there. The secret prayers thou didst make for me, that only thy God hath known, arose like sweet incense, holy and free, and gathered around his throne. My robe was filled with a perfume sweet, to shed upon this world's air, as I joyful knelt at my Saviour's feet, for the glorious crown I wear. In that bright, blissful world of ours, the waters of life I drink. Behold my feet as they've pressed the flowers that grow by the fountain's brink. No thorn is hidden to wound me there, there's nothing of chill or blight, or sighing to blend with the balmy air, no sorrow, no pain, no night. No parting? I asked with a burst of joy, and the lovely illusion broke. My rapture had banished my beauteous boy, to a shadowy void I spoke. But oh, that star of the morn still beams with light to direct my feet, where when I have done with my earthly dreams, the mother and child may meet. End of The Mother's Dream by Hannah Flagg Gould. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
A Dream Within a Dream by Edgar Allan Poe. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Louise J. Bell. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. A Dream Within a Dream by Edgar Allan Poe. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow. You are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet, if hope has flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few! Yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep, while I weep. O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? End of A Dream Within a Dream by Edgar Allan Poe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
Ex Oblivione by H.P. Lovecraft. Read for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Andrew Gaunce. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Ex Oblivione by H.P. Lovecraft. When the last days were upon me and the ugly trifles of existence began to drive me to madness like the small drops of water that torturers let fall ceaselessly upon one spot of their victim's body, I loved the irradiate refuge of sleep. In my dreams I found a little of the beauty I had vainly sought in life, and wandered through old gardens and enchanted woods. Once, when the wind was soft and scented, I heard the south calling, and sailed endlessly and languorously under strange stars. Once, when the gentle rain fell, I glided in a barge down a sunless stream under the earth, till I reached another world of purple twilight, iridescent arbors, and undying roses. And once I walked through a golden valley that led to shadowy groves and ruins, and ended in a mighty wall green with antique vines, and pierced by a little gate of bronze. Many times I walked through that valley, and longer would I pause in the spectral half-light where the giant trees squirmed and twisted grotesquely, and the grey ground stretched damply from trunk to trunk, sometimes disclosing the mold-stained stones of buried temples. And always the goal of my fancies was the mighty vine-grown wall with the little gate of bronze therein. After a while, as the days of waking became less and less bearable from their greyness and sameness, I would often drift in opiate peace through the valley and the shadowy groves, and wonder how I might seize them for my eternal dwelling place, so that I need no more crawl back to a dull world stripped of interest and new colours. And as I looked upon the little gate in the mighty wall, I felt that beyond it lay a dream country from which, once it was entered, there would be no return. So each night in sleep I strove to find the hidden latch of the gate in the ivied antique wall, though it was exceedingly well hidden, and I would tell myself that the realm beyond the wall was not more lasting merely, but more lovely and radiant as well. Then one night in the dream city of Zakarian I found a yellowed papyrus filled with the thoughts of dream sages who dwelt of old in that city, and who were too wise ever to be born in the waking world. Therein were written many things concerning the world of dream, and among them was lore of a golden valley, and a sacred grove with temples, and a high wall pierced by a little bronze gate. When I saw this lore I knew that it touched on the scenes I had haunted, and I therefore read long in the yellowed papyrus. Some of the dream sages wrote gorgeously of the wonders beyond the irrepassable gate, but others told of horror and disappointment. I knew not which to believe, yet longed more and more to cross forever into the unknown land, for doubt and secrecy are the lure of lures, and no new horror can be more terrible than the daily torture of the commonplace. So when I learned of the drug which would unlock the gate and drive me through, I resolved to take it when next I awaked. Last night I swallowed the drug and floated dreamily into the golden valley and the shadowy groves. And when I came this time to the antique wall, I saw that the small gate of bronze was ajar. From beyond came a glow that weirdly lit the giant twisted trees and the tops of the buried temples, and I drifted on songfully, expectant of the glories of the land from whence I should never return. But as the gate swung wider and the sorcery of drug and dream pushed me through, I knew that all sights and glories were at an end. For in that new realm was neither land nor sea, but only the white void of unpeopled and illimitable space. So, happier than I had ever dared hope to be, I dissolved again into that native infinity of crystal oblivion from which the daemon life had called me for one brief and desolate hour. End of Ex Oblivione by H.P. Lovecraft. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
Dreams by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2. Stories and Poems by Sarah Jobber. Dream on, for dreams are sweet. Do not awaken. Dream on, and at thy feet pomegranates shall be shaken. Who likeneth the youth of life to morning? 'Tis like the night, in truth, rose-colored dreams adorning. The wind is soft above, the shadows umber. There is a dream called love. Take thou the fullest slumber. In Lethe's soothing stream, thy thirst thou slaketh. Sleep, sleep, 'tis sweet to dream. O weep, then thou awakest. End of Dreams by Paul Laurence Dunbar. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Mana Inaminata, I Dream of You to Wake by Christina Rossetti. Recorded for Dreams Collection 2, Stories and Poems by Sarah Jobber. I dream of you to wake, would that I might dream of you and not wake, but slumber on, nor find with dreams the dear companion gone. As summer ended, summer birds take flight. In happy dreams I hold you full in sight. I blush again who waking looks so wan, brighter than sunniest day that ever shone. In happy dreams your smile makes day of night. Thus only in a dream we are at one. Thus only in a dream we give and take. The faith that maketh rich who take or give, if thus to sleep is sweeter than to wake. To die were surely sweeter than to live, though there be nothing new beneath the sun. End of Mana Inaminata, I Dream of You to Wake by Christina Rossetti. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.